الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان.
Assalamu alaikum, my friends. Welcome back to Revelation Kids Qur'an Year 11. You will finally see. You will finally see. After everything the Prophet had been through, after losing Abu Talib, after burying Khadija, after being stoned and chased out of Ta'if with blood dried to his feet, after all of that, Allah did something that had never been done before for any human being. He didn't send a message through Jibreel. He didn't send a verse on the wind. He brought the Prophet, peace be upon him, directly to him. It began as an ordinary night in Mecca. The Prophet, peace be upon him, had been invited into the house of his cousin, Hani, to lead the evening prayer. Afterward, he fell asleep. And then, just before dawn, Jibreel appeared. But this time, the angel didn't come with words. He came with a ride. Standing before the Prophet, peace be upon him, was a creature unlike anything in this world. It was a winged horse, brilliant white. It was called Al-Buraq. Each of its strides covered the distance of the horizon. The Prophet, peace be upon him, mounted Al-Buraq, and in an instant they were gone. From Mecca to Jerusalem, hundreds of miles in a single breath. The Qur'an describes this journey in one of its most famous verses.
سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير.
The verse says, Glory be to the one who took his servant on a journey by night from the sacred place of prostration in Mecca to the faraway place of prostration in Jerusalem, to an area that we have specially blessed so that we could show him some of our signs. Did you hear that? Allah wanted to show the Prophet something. That was the key. This wasn't a reward, and it wasn't a vacation. It was a showing. Allah was about to open the Prophet's eyes to something that no human had ever seen before. When the Prophet, peace upon him, arrived in Jerusalem, at Masjid al-Aqsa, the sacred mosque that Ibrahim a.s. had built generations ago, he found them waiting for him. All of them. Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, Nuh, Dawood, Sulaiman, peace be upon them all, every prophet Allah had ever sent, standing there together in one place. And they asked him, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to lead the prayer. Think about that. The man who had just been stoned out of Ta'if, the man whose feet were still healing, the man the Quraysh called a liar and a madman, standing before every prophet in history, they chose him to lead the prayer. That, my friends, is clarity. When Allah shows you your place in His plan, every doubt that you ever had melts away. After the prayer, Jibreel took the Prophet's hand and said, Come. And they began to rise, up through the first heaven, then the second, then the third, layer after layer of sky, each one more wondrous than the last. And at every level, the Prophet met another prophet. And the first was Adam, peace be upon him, the father of all humanity, who smiled and said, Welcome, righteous son. Musa a.s. was in the sixth heaven, and he wept because he knew the Prophet's followers were outnumber his own. And Ibrahim a.s. was in the seventh, the highest heaven, the Prophet's greatest ancestor, leaning against the heavenly house, where 70,000 angels enter to worship each day and never return. At one point, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was offered 3 cups, a cup of wine, a cup of milk, and a cup of honey. The Prophet, peace be upon him, looked at all 3, and he chose the milk. And then Jibreel smiled and said, You have chosen the natural way, the way of Islam. At each stop, the Prophet saw things that no words could fully capture, rivers of light, gardens beyond description, and the vastness of Allah's creation stretching further than any mind could hold. And then They reached the boundary. The Sidrat al-Muntaha, the low tree of the furthest limit. Beyond this point, even Jibreel could not go. The angel who had been with the Prophet since the first night in the cave, the one who had squeezed him 3 times and said, "Read," the one who had brought him every verse of the Qur'an, even he stopped here. "This is as far as I can go," Jibreel said. And so the Prophet went alone, past the lote tree, which was shrouded in colors he could not describe, into a closeness with Allah that no created being had ever known. The Qur'an captures this moment powerfully. It says about the Prophet, peace upon him, "His sight never swerved, nor did it fail, for he truly saw the greatest signs of his Lord."
فأوحى إلى عبده ما أوحى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى أفتمارونه على ما يرى ولقد رآه نزلة أخرى عند سدرة المنتهى عندها جنة المأوى إذ يغشى السدرة ما يغشى ما زاغ البصر وما طغى لقد رأى من آيات ربه الكبرى.
Years later, when someone asked the Prophet, peace upon him, what he saw, if he actually saw Allah, he said, "Only blinding light. How could I see him then?" He didn't see Allah's face, but he felt his presence. He heard his words. And in that moment, every trial he had ever endured, every insult, every stone, every loss, it all made sense. That is insight. Not understanding everything at once, but understanding enough to keep going with certainty. This is what the poem line means. You will finally see. Not with your eyes necessarily, but with your heart. And then, at the very height of the heavens, Allah gave the Prophet, peace be upon him, something to bring back down to earth. Not a treasure, not a weapon, not a kingdom. A gift far greater than all of those. The gift of prayer. 50 prayers a day to be exact. As a prophet, peace be upon him, descended through the heavens, he passed by Musa a.s., Prophet Moses, who asked him what Allah had commanded. When the Prophet told him 50 prayers, Musa shook his head and said, "Go back. Ask your Lord to make it easier for your people. I tried with my people, the children of Israel, Bani Israel, but they could barely manage." And so the Prophet, peace be upon him, listened to Musa a.s. and he went back. And Allah reduced the number. He went back again, and each time Musa a.s. urged him to return and decrease the number some more. They did this back and forth until the number went from 50 prayers a day all the way down to 5 prayers a day. Even then, Musa encouraged the Prophet to go back and ask for less. But at this point, the Prophet simply replied, "I feel ashamed now of repeatedly asking my Lord for a reduction. I will accept and resign to His will." And that's how we have the 5 daily prayers, but with the reward of 50. This was the gift of the Mi'raj. The Mi'raj was the journey the Prophet, peace be upon him, did from Jerusalem to the heavens. And when he came back, he got this gift, the gift of the 5 prayers. It was not a miracle for the world to see. It was a quiet, private gift for every believer who would ever live thereafter. 5 times a day, you and I get to do what the Prophet did that night. Stand before Allah, draw close to Him, speak directly to Him. We don't need an angel. We don't need a winged horse. We don't need a journey through the heavens. Just you, just me, just all of us, standing, bowing, pressing our forehead to the ground, and Allah is always listening. Every prayer, in a way, is kind of a tiny mi'raj for us. This is awakening, realizing that the gift wasn't just for the Prophet, but it's for you, it's for me, it's for all of us. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, returned to Mecca before dawn. The journey that he had from Mecca to Jerusalem is called the Isra, and the journey from Jerusalem up through the heavens is called the Mi'raj. Together, we call this incredible night the night of the Isra and the Mi'raj. The Prophet returned to Mecca before dawn, and when he told Hani what had happened, she begged him not to tell anyone. "They'll ridicule you, they'll make fun of you," she said. But he told them anyway. He told everyone in Mecca, and the Quraysh, they loved the news. They laughed. They mocked him. They clapped their hands together and said it was the most ridiculous story they had ever heard. How could anyone travel to Jerusalem and back in a single night? That journey takes a month by camel. But then the Prophet began to describe the sacred temple in Jerusalem, a place he had never visited, and he described it in such detail, such precise detail, that those people who had been there before could not believe what they were hearing. How could he know all these details about what Jerusalem looked like? He also described the caravans that he had seen on the road back to Mecca, and the hours and days that followed, those exact caravans arrived into the city just as he had described them. When the news reached Abu Bakr, he didn't hesitate for a second. When he was asked if he believed, Abu Bakr calmly answered, "If he said it, then it's true. And what's the big deal? He tells me that Allah gives him revelation from the heavens to the earth in 1 hour of the day or night, and I know him to be speaking the truth." Because Abu Bakr was so solidly alongside the Prophet, from that day on, the Prophet, peace be upon him, honored Abu Bakr with the title As-Siddiq, the great witness of truth. And from then on, Abu Bakr was called Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Because awareness is knowing that the unseen world is just as real as the one in front of your eyes, and Abu Bakr never doubted that, not once, not ever. This is Qur'an year 11, the year of the Isra and the Mi'raj, the year that Allah lifted the Prophet from the lowest point of his life, from Taif, to the highest point any human being has ever reached. From bleeding under a tree in Taif to a guest in the heavens, standing beyond the lot tree in the presence of his Lord. You will finally see. And what did he see? He saw that every prophet who came before him had walked the same road, that every trial had a purpose, and that the creator of the universe was closer to him than he ever imagined. And what did he bring back? Not gold, not power, something far more valuable. He brought back prayer, as-salat. This was a gift from Al-Basir, the all-seeing, another name of Allah's. Al-Basir, the all-seeing, is Allah because He sees every tear you cry, every prayer you whisper, and every night you feel alone. He sees you. He's watching over you. He always has, and He always will. The mnemonic for Quran Year 11 is the easiest one of probably the entire Quran Year timeline. All you need to remember is that 11 rhymes with, and if you can't see me right now, I'm pointing to the sky. What does 11 rhyme with? 11 rhymes with heaven. And that's how I personally remember that the Quran Year 11 is the year of the Isra and the Mi'raj, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, in Quran Year 11 ascended or climbed up through the heavens, known as the Mi'raj. That's actually my name. I don't know if you know that. My name is Mi'raj because I'm named after this event. So maybe it's especially fun for me. So, Quran Year 11, it's the year that Allah lifted the Prophet from the lowest point in his life to the highest point any human being has ever reached. Quran Year 11 was an amazing year for the Prophet, but that doesn't mean that Makkah is a safe place to live. In fact, it's very unsafe for the Prophet. But soon, a small group of visitors from a distant city will change everything. They'll change the course of human history, change the course of the Prophet's journey. But we'll find out in Quran Year 12. We'll find out that you have to leave the ordinary. I'll see you guys tomorrow night, inshallah, in Quran Year 12. Assalamu alaikum.
إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون أولئك أصحاب الجنة خالدين فيها جزاء بما كانوا يعملون.